Hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and this time I'm going to compare two amazingly historic but awesome cities to visit here in America: New Orleans, Louisiana, and St. Augustine, Florida. Both have really rich history, incredible architecture, and a very unique culture. One is a very vibrant, jazz-filled melting pot on the Mississippi River, and that is New Orleans. And the other is the oldest city in the US soaked in Spanish colonial charm, that being St. Augustine. So if you're torn between the two, hopefully this video helps. Starting with the first thing I'm going to compare, the overall city layout. New Orleans is a very eclectic web of neighborhoods shaped by the curve of the Mississippi River. Areas like the French Quarter, Garden District, and Bywater each have a distinct vibe and require either walking or using streetcars. The layout in general can kind of feel a little bit chaotic, but also pretty fun to explore. However, St. Augustine, on the other hand, is very compact, charming, especially the historic core. Most attractions like the castles, cathedrals, museums, cafes are within walking distance. The layout follows an old Spanish colonial grid with narrow streets and pedestrian-only areas. This is a very ideal place for slow exploration on foot. The next thing to compare, the overall architecture of both of these amazing cities. New Orleans is a kaleidoscope of styles: French, Spanish colonial, Creole, and many grand mansions in the Garden District. Wrought iron balconies, colorful facades, and lush courtyards give the city its iconic flair. Every neighborhood feels like a different chapter in an architectural storybook. St. Augustine, however, is a very preserved slice of old world history. It showcases incredible Spanish colonial buildings and a stone fortress like Castillo de San Marcos right next to downtown. Furthermore, from the Gilded Age, a masterpiece like Flagler College. So many architectural gems here. So what you're really looking at, St. Augustine has a lot more Spanish influence, New Orleans a lot more French influence. Both are fantastic in their own way. But if I really had to choose, my personal taste would probably be St. Augustine. But to be honest, almost nothing beats the architecture of St. Augustine in my opinion. The third thing to compare, the overall vibe and atmosphere. New Orleans is a massive party vibe, especially on Bourbon Street. But almost every other block has an outdoor concert of some sort. Literally like a block party on every street. So much fun, very bold, bohemian, street performers of all sorts. In a way, you can say it's like a mix between soulful, chaotic, unpredictable, but always alive. St. Augustine, very, very different. A lot quieter, kind of a coastal vibe, and kind of romantic in a way. It's a really good place to take your wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend. Candlelit taverns, horse-drawn carriages, street musicians as well, some playing Spanish guitar. The one I ran into was playing banjo. Even though it's a relatively large city, not nearly as large as New Orleans, but a decent-sized city, it does have that small-town feel, a lot more laid-back pace, a slower pace. So if you're into very high-energy, sensory immersion, New Orleans is absolutely the place. But if you want a laid-back feel with a historic ambiance, St. Augustine is the place. Both very different, both great in their own way. Now, when it comes to the overall cultural scene, New Orleans is one of the richest cultural cities in the US. This is the birthplace of jazz music, which is why you see so many jazz concerts outside on every street. It's also steeped in African, French, Spanish, and Caribbean influences. The food is amazing, the music is amazing, so many people are dancing. Also, lots of spiritual practices, particularly from voodoo. Not too sure how much now, but certainly one point voodoo was very, very big here in New Orleans. And when it comes to St. Augustine, it offers a more focused cultural experience rooted mainly in Spanish heritage and colonial history. There are a few museums, reenactments, and historic places such as the Ponce de Leon Fountain of Youth. Really cool. So when it comes to the overall water access, New Orleans is right next to the Mississippi River. While the water shapes the city's identity, it's more about boat tours, swamp explorations, and riverside ambience than swimming or beach days, to be honest. However, swamp tours and steamboat cruises are key experiences here in New Orleans. I will say though, St. Augustine is right on the Atlantic, so if you want to play in the water, go to the beach, St. Augustine is the place for that. Just across the bridge from downtown is the beach, and right on downtown is the river. Sidewalks next to the river, you can walk right next to it. So that part's pretty cool, but not far away at all is the beach. Now, when it comes to overall tourism and crowds, New Orleans gets completely packed out. When we were there, it was so packed, it was insane. And we weren't even there during Mardi Gras. However, in New Orleans, Mardi Gras in and of itself is packed. Jazz Fest also has Essence Fest. These draw huge crowds. The French Quarter especially can feel very overwhelming, especially during peak times. However, parking is a little bit difficult. We did have to pay, I think, $70 a day for parking in a certain lot. I forgot. It wasn't too far of a walk to some of the main streets. You know, it was a little bit pricey, especially compared to St. Augustine. We didn't have to pay for parking at all over there. Also, parking was very, very easy. The crowds was not much at all. Relatively steady tourism year-round, especially from families and history lovers. Weekend crowds here in St. Augustine could probably clog the historic district, but overall, it's nowhere nearly as crowded as New Orleans. So if you like big crowds, New Orleans, good place. If you want smaller, calmer crowds, St. Augustine is a good choice. Well, now when it comes to comparing food, I think New Orleans probably has one of the most legendary food scenes in the entire world. Gumbo, beignets, po' boys. They have so much food here and everything is amazing. When me and my wife were here, we spent so much money on food because we could not help but to continuously go to restaurant after restaurant. We even tried an alligator on a stick, and that was amazing. As for St. Augustine, they do have pretty good fresh seafood along with Spanish and Cuban influence. Nothing against any other city, but almost nothing will beat New Orleans food. However, when it comes to the overall history of both of these cities, New Orleans has a fair amount. It has all sorts of crazy pirate history here in New Orleans. And what's crazy, in the War of 1812, pirate John Lafitte helped America defeat Britain here in New Orleans. So crazy. Pirates helped America win a war. And as for St. Augustine, this place has so much incredible history. Well, first off, it's the oldest European-founded city in America. And they take that identity very seriously. They actually have reenactments of the Castillo de San Marcos colonial museums. Along with that, preserved Spanish streets give you literally walk through time. A few other great things to mention about St. Augustine. It has St. George Street, an awesome pedestrian-friendly street. Really cool architecture. So many restaurants, shops of all sorts along the way. It also has the oldest wooden schoolhouse in America, I believe. The Cathedral Basilica of St. Augustine has stunning architecture. Inside and outside is absolutely amazing. Along with the Lightner Museum, that's really cool to look at. But one of my favorite zoos I've ever been to in my life, the St. Augustine Alligator Farm. What I love about it, a lot of it is outside. So a lot of the animals are either free, but the alligators are obviously not free, but they're not trapped in a cage of some sort. So it feels like you're in the wild in a way. It also has the ancient old senator tree. Pretty sweet tree, you can see it for free. The Mission Nombre de Dios, this is a pretty cool historical area. Along with that, the St. Augustine Lighthouse. You can climb this, it's a lot of fun to do. The boardwalk on Matanza River, and the really nice Memorial Presbyterian Church. But New Orleans has so much as well. One of the oldest cathedrals in America, the St. Louis Cathedral. Also Jackson Square, a lot of history here. Café du Monde, the French open air market, which is one of the country's oldest open air markets. Pirates Alley, where pirates used to go. M.S. Ra or Rue, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but this is one of the coolest antique shops I've ever been to in my life. And one of the oldest bars in America, Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop Bar. And apparently it's named after the pirate I was talking about earlier, Lafitte. So overall, choose New Orleans if you like a giant party vibe scene, live music every single corner, incredible food, cultural intensity around every corner, constant sense of celebration, along with a very immersive blend of history, art, and a nightlife that never really stops. There is a big downside, lots of homeless people. We actually had a bad encounter on one of the side streets, so if you go, stay on one of the main roads where everyone else is at. Just try to be near as many people as possible. However, you won't encounter anything like that for St. Augustine. There's a lot less homeless, but it's not really a party place. It's more of like a romantic, slow-paced journey through centuries of Spanish-American history, beautiful beaches, walkable streets, incredible architecture, an overall laid-back mix of family, fun, educational sites, and scenic beauty. If you want to party and have fun, New Orleans. If you want something more family-friendly, St. Augustine. Hope this video helped you guys, but if you want to see a little bit more about these cities, check out New Orleans to the left and check out St. Augustine to the right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a blessed day.